Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you a horror, thriller movie from 2017, titled The End. The day has just started and it is already not going well for businessman Claudio Verona. The car that picks him up every day is late and a young man called Ricardo has replaced his usual driver. The traffic is worse than usual as well, although Claudio blames it on the route Ricardo chose and not any outstanding circumstances. When Ricardo turns on the radio, the news reports riots happening in various zones of Rome. Apparently small groups of hoodlums decided to attack at the same moment in near-perfect sync, but there hasn't been any official word from law enforcement. Claudio, who is currently trying to review some notes for an incoming meeting, barely pays attention but is still pretty annoyed by the radio in general, so he asks Ricardo to turn it off. He gets even more annoyed when Ricardo asks him to help him get into the economics business, but thankfully, his phone rings and interrupts the conversation. It's Sarah, his secretary, asking him what to do with the client waiting for him. Claudio tells her to offer him breakfast and to keep him there until he arrives, and after hanging up, he tells Ricardo he's sorry for him for having gotten involved in economics. When he finally makes it to the office, another secretary named Sylvia is there waiting for him, with coffee and a reminder of his golf game. She's still a trainee, so Claudio tells her to ask for a meeting with Sarah so she can join his team because he likes employees with initiative. Afterward, he rushes into the elevator so he can join his coworker Marta, who refuses to give him a kiss when he asks for one. Marta reminds Claudio that their affair is over and that she's getting married soon, but Claudio doesn't care because he's been married for 5 years. And that has never stopped him. Not being able to take rejection, Claudio stops the elevator and pushes Marta against the wall, saying he misses the old days and not letting go of her when she tries to escape his grip. Claudio continues to harass her, trying to make her admit she liked it, so Marta gives in and says she did, only to suddenly grab his groin and tell him it would've worked out if he wasn't a filthy pig. When the elevator reaches her floor, she gets out after insulting him, but Claudio doesn't seem to mind, he likes such feisty personalities. After pressing the button to his floor, Claudio picks up a call from his wife Lorena, who tells him about the riots on the news. Things have gotten worse and now there are blocked streets. In the middle of their talk, the elevator gets stuck, but this doesn't faze Claudio because the same happened last month. As he tells his wife goodbye, Lorena tries to get him to buy milk after work, and he gets angry at her for thinking about that when he's in the middle of a complicated day. Claudio presses the emergency button and gets in contact with the maintenance technician to tell him he's stuck and he needs this problem solved as soon as possible because he must attend a very important meeting. The technician checks the system and informs him there's a problem with the power unit on the roof, so he'll send some of his men to check it out. While waiting, Claudio calls Sarah to remind her she must do anything in her power so their client doesn't leave, no matter how impatient he's getting. After lighting a cigarette, he starts hearing some noises outside and tries to call for help, but he's ignored. Claudio gets increasingly angry and calls maintenance again, but the technician tells him he's lost contact with his men on the roof, so he gives him their phone number so Claudio can call them directly. When the technician on the roof picks up, he says they're running a reset of the generator, but they aren't quite sure of what the problem is quite yet, which angers Claudio even more. The conversation is suddenly interrupted when the technicians see something that makes them freak out and run, causing the call to end. Claudio presses the emergency button again to demand some answers, and after some arguing, the technician in charge accepts to go to the roof himself to see what's going on. Getting tired of waiting, Claudio decides to take the matter into his own hands. He takes off his jacket and starts pushing the elevator doors apart. It takes some effort, but he eventually manages to open the first door wide enough for his body to fit. However, the second door gets stuck on a misplaced part and he only manages to open it enough for his head to fit through. The elevator has stopped right before reaching the 7th floor, and this gives Claudio a look into the offices. He asks for help but nobody answers, so he tries to climb through the door gap, but it isn't wide enough for him to go through. Claudio resigns himself to waiting again, and gets a new call from Lorena, who is afraid because someone is knocking hard on the door, yet they don't answer. He tells her to call the police, but Lorena says the line isn't working, so instead, Claudio tells her to lock herself in the bedroom while he calls a friend of theirs, Stefano, to ask him to go check on her. Stefano agrees to do this favor for Claudio, but he does warn him that it may take him a while to arrive because the traffic is awful. When he calls Lorena again to tell her Stefano is on his way, she is even more scared because the news is showing violence taking over the streets. Claudio doesn't take her seriously and just tells her to calm down and wait for Stefano before hanging up. Moments later, he's looking at the news headlines on his phone. They all talk about the strange attacks and blocked roads in Rome. He changes his mind, however, when pus starts coming out from Marcello's wound and he wakes up transformed into a zombie. He tries to communicate with him, but after Marcello jumps on him to attack him, Claudio shoots him, first on the body to push him away, then twice on the head to make sure he's dead. Claudio's leg has been wounded as well, so he ties his tie around it in an effort to stop the infection from spreading. His shots have been heard by zombies, and now there's a horde of them at the door, but his gun has run out of bullets. Claudio drops it and grabs Marcello's rifle instead, which he uses to shoot every single zombie he can reach. The impact of each shot pushes his body back until it hits the wall, and with the final shot, he hits his head and falls unconscious. Some moments later, he wakes up when he hears voices and gunshots in the hallway. There are no zombies in sight except for the bodies on the floor, and his phone is now ringing, but it's just the 7 a.m. alarm. Claudio turns it off, but then his phone rings again. This time, it's an actual call. To Claudio's delight, he hears Lorena's voice, who is actually alive and well. She had run out of the house and the military saved her. The call abruptly ends when his battery dies, but this is enough motivation for Claudio to try to escape again. He grabs the handrail and tries to push the elevator piece that is blocking the doors, but he can't reach it at the right angle, so he drags Marcello's body over and steps on it to reach in between doors with his hand. He manages to grab the piece and take it out. This allows him to push the door all the way and widen the gap. Claudio's finally free. After drinking the leftover water, he climbs out of the elevator and steps over some zombie bodies to reach the hallway. After finding his watch on the floor, he puts it and his jacket on before going downstairs. When he makes it to the lobby, he finds even more bodies, including a legless zombie that drags itself over to him and tries to grab him. Claudio pulls the rifle trigger, but there are no bullets left, so instead, he smashes the zombie's head with his foot. As Claudio leaves the building and walks through the streets of Rome, he notices there is no life around, just zombie bodies everywhere. At the bridge, he finds a bottle of milk on the ground next to a woman and, remembering his argument with his wife, he picks it up, causing the woman to wake up and grab his leg. Claudio steps back and is ready to defend himself using the bottle, but the zombie falls dead when the military shoots it from a nearby roof. They're seen by Claudio, who quickly raises his arms and shows them he's fine, hoping they'll allow him to join the refugee shelters.